Everyone always knew social media would change election campaigns, but along with the positive changes, this campaign has seen a number of candidates felled by their social media past. Did the parties not vet candidates properly, or is it impossible to expect to know every little comment a candidate has made online? Lots to put to our insiders tonight. Kathleen, David, and Jamie. So I don't want to pick on anyone here, but there's a recurring... There's 9 candidates dismissed or who have stepped down in this campaign so far. A lot of them have been yours. Is there something wrong with the process? Is the process changing? What's going on?
Well, the process is changing for sure. I mean, we've always had candidates who forgot that they were arrested or forgot that they didn't actually complete that degree or forgot they were once married, and these things would used to take a whole bunch of effort to come to the fore. Now, thanks to Google and to others, it's a much easier thing to do. So it is changing. I think one of the questions we've got to ask ourselves is, every time someone did something stupid when they were in university, were they young, should this really count as a disqualifier forever? And I think we're going to have to rethink some of these things. So I don't think they're all quite that important.
We'll come back to that discussion in a moment. But first, Kathleen, what is the process? I mean, you guys know Google.
Yeah, well, I mean, the process really, when someone wants to put themselves forward for public office, is that they have to fill out a candidate, package, information package. And things that are investigated are things like, your work history, your real estate ownings, any memberships you may have or associations. And the parties, once the candidate fills that form out, then the parties do a Q&A and the ultimate question that is on any candidate information package is this: is there anything that you haven't disclosed in this package that may bring embarrassment upon the party? And clearly, we have seen some cases in this election in 2015 of where, maybe peeing in a cup would constitute embarrassment upon the party and should have been disqualified the candidate.
Well, that one may go down in history, but is the onus on the candidate to say, yes, I've done these embarrassing things? Isn't there, what's the process?
Well, I think the onus is in a large measure on the candidate to disclose these things because, frankly, it's ultimately in their best interest as well as the party's best interest for them to disclose. It allows the issue to be managed in a much more effective way. The Liberal Party has something called a green light committee, and I presume the other parties have some version of this, where anybody who wants to seek a nomination has to go through this vetting process, and they go through the things that Kathleen talked about. And the process has changed over time. We put candidates through...
So how do they slip
We put
through?
candidates through credit checks. We put candidates through criminal checks, and I remember when we first did that in 2004, that was very controversial inside the Liberal Party to do criminal checks. But I actually am going to take a slightly different tack. I'm not sure that 9 people out of the thousands of people who sought nominations for the 3 parties and for the various parties across the country is that many to have slipped through. The people doing the vetting are, I presume in the other parties as well, volunteers. And they go through the process that Kathleen talked about, and then they do social media checks and they try to do online checks. But it is impossible to find everything.
But I think nothing takes the place of your own self-vet, right? There's candidates, as David has said, should vet themselves and say, should I really put myself forward for public office? But also it takes political judgment on behalf of the party to kind of size up the individual. For instance,
but now we have these bloggers, right, who are going out and they're investigating. It's not just the parties, because the parties have always done that. They've always looked to weaken the opponent. But we have bloggers now. In the past, what have parties done? And how do some of these things come forward? Do you save it up for special moments if you do have something that's not trivial, but something that actually matters that you think people need to know about it?
Well, in the past, opposition researchers would skulk down to the courthouse and dig out, former divorce agreements or any kind of real estate holdings and kind of air that kind of stuff. Now it happens online. And what's interesting about this campaign is the vetting is not so much happening internally to the parties, but it's actually happening by citizen vetters. And this is really interesting. So people without necessarily a partisan identification who are doing this themselves on their own accord.
Like we got a tip about Jerry Vance. I mean, that was brown envelope to somebody, right?
So when you do it on your own candidates, it's called vetting.
Yeah.
When you do it on the other people's candidates, it's called opposition research, right? And it's the same activity. And what people used to do is they would find something out that would be embarrassing to an opponent, and they would save it up often for the day of a debate. Right, and they would leak it to the media the morning of the debate, so the other side would open the newspaper that morning, and there'd be some scandal or some faux scandal, but it would have the effect of hopefully throwing the other side off their game for the day and rattling the candidate for the debate. So that's a time
This
old
blogger
time
now
type
is saying that he's got a few more. He's going to save it for the nominations deadline, where I guess you can't
Replace
ask
the
people to
candidate.
step
Never
Can't
aside.
replace
place
them,
anymore.
So there's more to come. What do you do, David? I mean, I'm sure it's happened to all of you. What do you do when you have to make a decision about somebody in your camp who's been embarrassed mid-campaign?
Well, I mean, the reason why it's so beneficial for the candidate to reveal everything to the party is it allows you to say that in context, that's not that bad, and we can manage this, and we can put this out in a way that will be okay for you. But if it happens in the heat of the writ period and the party's blindsided by it, and frankly angry because you didn't disclose it, you're likely to get fired. The first thing that you do is sit down with the candidate and talk to them, and say, what is the story here, and what is the context behind what you said, and what do you believe about this now? And if you can save the candidate, you want to save the candidate. But if there's not enough contrition on the candidate's part, or if the offense is too egregious, then you got to cut your losses right away, because you do not want to spend. Every one of these things has cost a leader part of the campaign explaining away or talking about these things. And that's a day, even in an election this long, that you can't lose.
Yeah, and just to underscore David's point is that, in a 36-day campaign, this campaign's a lot longer than that. A typical budget would be $24 million for a 37-day campaign. So we're talking $500,000 a day. So if you are spending one whole day on the campaign trail dealing with a candidate that should be ditched, that's a huge waste of money, time, and effort.
How do you decide when somebody's got to go? Like, what's the line?
Well, as David says, it depends when in the campaign is happening. And, when the campaign is tight and tough and the fight is on, you don't have patience, you don't have time, you don't have energy, really, to defend those candidates. So they're much more likely to go because they're costing you more than if that had come up, earlier along. I mean, everyone's got secrets in their lives. And if you want to run for public office, one of the things you have to come face to face with is some of those secrets are going to come out. So what's the best way to do it? But if it's knocking you off message, if it's preventing you from making the points that you need to make, tell you, there's one candidate that gets protected in every campaign. One candidate that gets protected, and that's the leader.
You've probably vetted him or her.
Yeah, probably.
Well, you've both of you have hinted at it, Kathleen. I mean, some of these are trivial, some of them are offensive. Where are we? Like, do Canadians, it seems it's all very exciting to read about what somebody posted on social media a few years back.
Well, it's gossip, it's voyeurism, but it's not insignificant. I mean, I can give you an example. In 2011, one of my researchers discovered that a Liberal candidate was a part of a white rights association, Andrew Forbes. And he was a Quebec candidate, and the Liberals quickly moved, and rightly so, I think, to dump the candidate. But that was, this is not somebody, in my opinion, and not in my party's opinion, and eventually in the Liberal Party's opinion, was somebody who could stand forth for office and should be rejected as a candidate. So some of the research that comes to light is important. I mean, maybe P-gate, not so much, but...
One of the things about social media is that those kind of people probably would have slid through before social media. Right. Because in the days before social media, very few candidates were on the public record with their beliefs and what they thought at any given point in time. Now almost everybody is on the record. And so, if you're a racist or if you hold offensive views of any kind, it's likely that you've hinted at that somewhere along the line on your Twitter or Facebook account.
But here's what we're going to have to figure out. When do these things go to character and go to the fundamental belief of a candidate, which should disqualify them for public office? And when were they normal, natural, stupid shenanigans of youth?
That we all
because
have.
If people
were looking into what we were doing. I want to move on to what's connected. Does this turn off people that you would want to recruit? Like, is everybody terrified now? There's no point, Kathleen and me, ever running for office because someone will find something I did stupid when I was 18 years old?
Well, it certainly is. I talk to a lot of women candidates trying to recruit them, and they see these stories come to light, and they say, why would I want to subject myself to that? But I think that those people who are truly committed to public office and public servant, go ahead with the process. But it's not for the faint of heart.
But when
I think I agree with that, but I also really agree with where Jamie started this discussion off, which is we're going to have to get a little used to the fact that the kind of people that you want in politics are people that are passionate and have ideas and care about things. And when you're 18 years old or 22 years old, you tend to express those things in black and white terms, in polarized ways that may not stand the scrutiny of 20 years later when you're looking at it. But I certainly don't want to limit ourselves to the kind of people who, from the time that they were 15 years old, said, how's this going to affect my future as a politician?
Yeah.
Last point, too, Jamie.
I have nothing. I think that's precisely right. I don't want the person that never jaywalked, never did anything wrong. That's so weird as
Never
to
made
not,
a joke.
Never made a joke is so weird as to not represent the Canadian people. Fundamental character aspects of character, yes. Normal, growing up and youth, no. We got to figure that out.
Well, there's a few more weeks to go. There may be more to come. Good luck to you all. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.